trouble for Ferrari in Australia? Lewis Hamilton is still struggling with his rhythm with the SF25, and Leclerc is having a tough time. Can they fight for the win, or will it be another tricky weekend? Stay until the end because I'll tell you how rain and strategy could change everything. And watch out. Could Ferrari surprise us in the race? Qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix left many more questions than answers for Ferrari. After showing competitive pace in Friday's practice sessions, the Italian team failed to translate that performance into a strong grid position. Charles Leclerc qualified in 7th place, while Lewis Hamilton finished 8th, a performance that fell short of the expectations generated after practice. One of the main issues was the loss of performance of the SF25 between the final practice session and qualifying. During practice, Ferrari seemed to be the closest team to McLaren, which has proven to have the fastest car at the start of the season. However, when push came to shove, the performance degradation became evident. One of the key factors in this drop in performance was the driver's difficulty in finding the optimal balance of the car in the changing track conditions. Ferrari opted for a setup that worked well in practice, but didn't adapt as well as the track evolved during qualifying. In Leclerc's case, the Monegasque driver failed to find the necessary level of grip on his final attempt at a fast lap in Q3. During the opening sectors, his pace seemed competitive, but he lost time in the low-speed corners, where the SF25 showed some instability compared to the McLaren and Red Bull cars. For Hamilton, the situation was even more complicated. The Briton is still adapting to the car, as reflected in his post-session comments. Despite his vast experience in Formula One, changing teams after 12 seasons with Mercedes is proving more difficult than expected. Hamilton admitted that he is still not completely comfortable with the way the Ferrari responds in qualifying, especially under braking and cornering. Another determining factor was Hamilton's need to use an extra set of soft tires in Q1 to secure his place in the next round, which compromised his strategy for the remainder of the session. This left him with fewer options in Q3, where his final lap was not enough to improve his position beyond 8th. In addition to the individual problems faced by each driver, Ferrari suffered compared to its direct rivals. While McLaren secured the front row with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and Red Bull secured a 3rd place with Max Verstappen, Ferrari was relegated to the 4th row of the grid, hampering its race aspirations. Despite these issues, Ferrari remains confident that its race pace will be better than that shown in qualifying. The team knows that its performance on long runs has been competitive and that, if they manage to execute the right strategy, they can still aim for a good result in the race. However, to do so, they will have to solve the car's stability issues and find a balance that allows Leclerc and Hamilton to attack without compromising tire degradation. The big question is whether weather conditions will play a decisive role. With the possibility of rain in the race, Ferrari could have an opportunity to make up ground, but it would also face another challenge. Hamilton has never driven the SF25 in wet conditions, which adds an element of uncertainty to his performance. Given this scenario, qualifying has left more questions than answers for Ferrari. The key will be how the team manages these issues and whether they can leverage their strategy to regain positions in the race. Lewis Hamilton's adaptation process to Ferrari is proving more complicated than expected. After 12 seasons at Mercedes, where he developed a perfect symbiosis with his engineering team and the performance of his cars, the switch to the SF25 has been a challenge in multiple ways. From differences in the required driving style to the car's technical setup, Hamilton is still not completely comfortable with his new car, which was evident during qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix. One of the main issues Hamilton faces is the SF25's handling under braking and cornering. Throughout his career, Hamilton has excelled at maximizing stability under late braking, allowing him to maintain high corner entry speeds. His driving style is characterized by small but constant steering inputs, which generate more energy in the front tires and allow him to maintain control at the rear of the car. The SF25, however, doesn't respond in the same way as the cars Hamilton was used to at Mercedes. His teammate, Charles Leclerc, uses a completely different technique, characterized by a more progressive corner entry and less steering input, which optimizes stability and reduces front tire wear. This difference in driving style requires a considerable adjustment process for Hamilton. During qualifying, Hamilton struggled to find the right balance for the car. On several occasions, the Briton mentioned that the SF25 behaves unexpectedly in certain conditions, especially in low-speed corners, where it feels more understeering than he would like. In an attempt to adapt, he has had to modify his braking technique and the way he applies power at corner exit, but these changes have not yet yielded the expected results. Another key technical challenge has been the difference in the car's internal systems and configurations. At Mercedes, Hamilton had intimate knowledge of each tool available and knew exactly what adjustments to make to improve its performance in different situations. At Ferrari, that knowledge is still immature. During practice and qualifying, Hamilton acknowledged that he still doesn't know how to make the most of the SF25's tools, forcing him to rely more on his engineers than he was used to. One of the clearest examples of this problem arose in qualifying, when Hamilton struggled to find the optimal brake setup. Ferrari uses Brembo brakes, whereas at Mercedes he had been using endless brakes for most of his career. This difference, although it may seem minor, has a significant impact on the car's braking behavior, affecting pedal feel, modulation, and how the tires react to deceleration. Hamilton also noted that his unfamiliarity with the SF25 has led him to make unusual mistakes. In Q1, he had to use an extra set of soft tires to ensure he advanced to the next stage, which compromised his strategy for the rest of the session. Then, in Q2, he spun in the final moments, which nearly ruled him out of the final round of qualifying. These incidents reflect the fact that he is still in a learning process and needs more time to understand the specifics of his new car. One of the factors that could further complicate his adaptation is the possibility of rain during the race. Hamilton admitted that he has not driven the SF25 in wet conditions so far and is not even fully familiar with the specific settings for this type of weather. His experience in the rain is unquestionable, but without knowing how the Ferrari responds under these conditions, he finds himself in a situation of uncertainty that could affect his performance. Despite all these challenges, Ferrari remains optimistic about Hamilton's adaptation. The team has reiterated that the Britain's integration process is not just about finding speed in a qualifying session, but also about building a strong relationship with the engineers, understanding the car's software, and adjusting his driving style to the demands of the SF25. Ferrari assures that Hamilton has all the necessary tools to adapt successfully, but that this process will take time. With the season just getting underway, Hamilton's challenge will be to continue working on understanding the car and finding solutions to the problems that have arisen in these first races. The key will be how he adjusts his driving style and to what extent Ferrari can help him feel more comfortable with the car. His experience and talent are beyond dispute, but the big question is how long it will take him to reach his peak level with the Italian team. Ferrari's qualifying performance made it clear they won't be fighting for victory from the front row, but the race offers a completely different opportunity. With Leclerc starting from 7th and Hamilton from 8th, strategy will play a key role in the Italian team's ability to aim for a positive result at the Australian Grand Prix. One of the key factors will be tire management. During practice sessions, Ferrari demonstrated that its pace on long runs is stronger than that shown in qualifying. Throughout last season and in the early testing of 2025, the team has worked to improve tire degradation, an area where they have struggled in previous years. The key to advancing in the race will be how well they manage to extend tire life without sacrificing performance against rivals such as Red Bull and McLaren. The choice of compounds and the number of pit stops will be decisive. The Albert Park layout, with its mix of fast corners and heavy braking zones, generates significant wear on the rear tires, which could open up the possibility of alternative strategies. While the conventional strategy suggests a two-stop race on medium and hard compounds, Ferrari could opt for a more aggressive strategy with a longer initial stint, depending on how degradation develops during the first part of the race. Another element that could change the course of the race is the weather. The possibility of rain adds an extra level of uncertainty and could be a key factor in the strategy. If weather conditions become unstable, the timing of the team's decision to switch to intermediate or heavy wet tires could make all the difference. In this scenario, Hamilton's experience in changing conditions could be an advantage, provided he can quickly adapt to the SF25's behavior in the wet. Safety car interventions could also play a decisive role. Albert Park is a circuit that has historically seen multiple incidents during the race, leading to the deployment of safety cars in several editions of the Grand Prix. A timely safety car could allow Ferrari to execute a pit stop without losing positions or even gain time on its rivals. Another aspect to consider is race pace compared to its direct rivals. In qualifying, Ferrari trailed McLaren and Red Bull, but on long runs the gap could narrow. While overtaking the front row cars on track will be difficult, a well-executed strategy could allow them to advance positions at the pit stops. The start will also be crucial. Albert Park is a circuit where overtaking is not easy due to the narrowness of the track and the lack of multiple clear overtaking points. The first corner and the long straight into turn 3 offer one of the few real opportunities to gain positions at the start. For Ferrari, Getting a good start will be crucial to avoid getting caught in traffic and compromising its pace in the early laps. Another important strategic element is energy management and the use of DRS. McLaren and Red Bull have shown greater efficiency in energy recovery and top speed with DRS activated. Ferrari will need to maximize the use of these tools to defend on the straights and seek overtaking opportunities at key moments. Pit strategy will also depend on the performance of rival teams. If Ferrari manages to maintain a competitive pace in the first stint, they could opt for an undercut strategy, stopping earlier than their competitors to fit fresh tires and gain time on the outlap. However, if degradation is less than expected, an overcut strategy, extending the initial stint longer than the others, could be the right option to gain positions when the others pit. One factor that could complicate Ferrari's strategy is Hamilton's lack of references in race conditions with this car. Unlike Leclerc, who already has experience managing the SF25's tires and pace, Hamilton is still in the learning process. His ability to adapt quickly and make strategic decisions inside the car will be put to the test. In terms of internal rivalry, Ferrari's strategy will also need to manage the balance between Leclerc and Hamilton. Depending on how the race unfolds, there could be a situation where both drivers are on different strategies, which could lead to tense moments if one of them is disadvantaged by a team decision. In conclusion, although qualifying didn't leave Ferrari in the best starting position, the race still offers opportunities. If the team can execute an efficient strategy, manage their tires well, and take advantage of any incidents or changes in weather conditions, they still have a chance of fighting for a podium finish or at least a better finishing position in the race. The Australian Grand Prix qualifying session made it clear that Ferrari continues to face significant challenges in the fight for the top spots. Although the team showed solid performance in practice sessions, the drop in performance during qualifying raises questions about their ability to translate the SF25's potential into consistent results. Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc will start from the fourth row, a position that leaves them out of direct contention for the win from the start. However, Formula One history has shown that races are rarely decided solely by qualifying. The key for Ferrari will be the execution of a smart strategy, tire management, and the driver's ability to adapt to changing track conditions. One of the determining factors will be the SF25's race pace compared to its rivals. If Ferrari can maintain a stable performance over long runs and take advantage of strategic opportunities in the pits, they could advance positions and close the gap to McLaren and Red Bull. Tire strategy will play a key role, as a wise decision at key moments could mean the difference between being stuck in traffic or fighting for higher positions. Another point to consider is the possible intervention of the safety car, an element that has had a decisive impact at Albert Park in multiple editions of the Grand Prix. A well-timed interruption could allow Ferrari to execute a more efficient pit stop and regain ground on the teams leading the grid. The big question mark remains Hamilton's performance in race conditions. His adaptation to the SF25 has not been immediate, and the lack of long-run references within Ferrari could be an obstacle. However, his experience and ability to manage tire wear could work in his favor, especially if the race takes place in changeable conditions. The possibility of rain adds a layer of uncertainty that could benefit Ferrari if they make timely strategic decisions. A sudden change in the weather could upset the established order and open up opportunities for Leclerc and Hamilton to gain positions if the team acts quickly in its decision-making. The pressure on Ferrari is high. After finishing runner-up in the Constructors' Championship last season, the expectations for 2025 are clear. They must prove they can consistently compete for wins. This Grand Prix will be a crucial test to assess their true level and determine if they have what it takes to challenge McLaren and Red Bull throughout the season. Despite the challenges, Ferrari still has room to surprise. The key will be execution, the team's ability to react to race circumstances, and the performance of its drivers under pressure. If they can maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses, they can still leave Australia with a positive result and a clearer view of their true potential this season. With the weather uncertain, the strategy at stake, and the drivers' motivation to prove their true abilities, the Australian Grand Prix will be a key test for Ferrari. What happens in this race could set the tone for the rest of the season and determine whether they truly have what it takes to fight for the championship or if they still have work to do to catch their main rivals.